How do you balance the development of your no-code app with the business side of things when you are a solo founder or maybe a small team? This is a question a lot of people ask because the truth is we're all busy. And here you are trying to launch a brand new venture, potentially on top of your life priorities, work, your job, business, and all of that. So how do you balance development and the business side of your app so you can actually successfully launch and grow your business? That's what we're going to talk about today. And there are three core areas, things you need to focus on in order to create this balance. And the truth is, if you don't have these three things, then none of the technical components of building your app really matter. So make sure you stick around until the end because each of these three things is really important to a successful launch. Now, first, if you're new around here, my name is Kristen, and I'm the co-founder of Coaching No Code Apps, where we help non-technical entrepreneurs build app-based businesses or apps to grow within their existing businesses, all without coding and with no technical background required. So how do you balance your development and the business side of things? Because both take a significant amount of focus and effort, and you already have a lot of other stuff going on in your life. Let's jump over to the whiteboard and break this down. All right, on my screen here, you can see three what looks sort of like boxes, and each of these is necessary to create this balance that you're looking for. Now, you can kind of look at these as being a sequence of events where if in order for the next step to happen, the one before it has to happen first. So in the first box here on the left, what we really need for you to do is commit to launching your app. Now, before you say this is way too simple and you click away, it is the fundamentals that get overlooked that often hold people back from successfully launching. Sometimes it's the most simplest things that really can enable you to see success with your app. So while this might sound simple, that's because it is, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. So the first thing I need you to do in order to find a balance is to make a commitment to launching your app. Now, make a commitment to yourself, sure. But what I really mean is that I need you to make a commitment publicly, okay? I need you to go and have conversations with your prospective users, your target market. Even if it's family and friends, that's fine. That's at least a step in the right direction. But I really want you to make a commitment to your prospective users that you're going to be putting a solution into their hands. Now, in our own private program with our entrepreneurs, we have them publicly commit to setting a launch date for their app because it builds accountability and it actually sets a date. Because until you have what we'll call a finish line, until you have that, you can't plan backwards in order to create the correct path to get there. And so you have to have a launch date, really. And ideally, you want to set this really early. Okay, the earlier you do this, the more you're going to put yourself into motion. Now, what does this have to do with balancing development and the business side of things? Well, a couple things. When you publicly announce a launch date, even if that's with a small group of prospective users, you are talking about your app. Now, when you're launching the first version of your app, you absolutely do not have to have some massive grand opening of a launch. In fact, I wouldn't recommend it, especially if you've never launched an app before. You really just want to get your version 1 out there into early users' hands as soon as you can so you can start getting feedback and iterating. And if you, from the very start, are publicly saying that you're going to be creating this solution, you're having conversations with prospective users, people within your target market, well, you are already generating interest for your solution without even really doing anything. You're not coming up with a business plan. You're not, hiding away for the next 6 months to figure out how you're going to get people interested in your app. You're just talking about it. It's pretty simple. And so this helps push forward just the announcement, right? Just having those conversations and doing it early is going to help you build excitement, not only with the people who you're talking to. I mean, theoretically, they really need the type of solution you're offering, so they're going to get excited about it, but also with you, because you now have other people interested in what you've been thinking about and planning for a really long time. And that can build a ton of momentum in both your development and with the rest of the business planning or processes and steps that are to come. And again, it's a really simple thing, but I can't say enough for having excitement for creating and launching your own product from the very beginning. Otherwise, it can feel like a really lonely road. And so this can do a lot, even though it doesn't have to do with the technical components of your app. Now, when you make this early public announcement and commitment to launch, you can move forward past this point into this next box, which is having the right plan. Now, I just got done talking about how, I really don't want to see you locking yourself away for months and months doing planning, because ultimately that just turns into a form of procrastination. What we want you doing is creating the right plan. This is one of the most important things we do with our own entrepreneurs really early on, right? Aside from committing to a launch date, we create a rock solid plan. And there are a couple different facets of this plan. Number one, you want to make sure it focuses on a problem and solution. So what I'm talking about here is a plan for building your app. So an actual development plan. What are you going to build? When are you going to build it? What order? How are you going to test it, right? You want to plan that out, but you also want to plan out how you're going to roll out the app and start bringing initial early users on board. And this plan needs to focus on a problem and a solution, both on the technical side and on the business side of things, bringing those users on board, spreading the word about your app, a problem and a solution. Now, most people think about their product when they're making a plan. They think about all the cool things they want to build into their app. They're only thinking about what they want. You need to think about what your users need. That's much more important than what you want. And you can only touch on or hit on what they need if you focus on the problem that they have and the solution that will enable them to achieve whatever outcome it is that they want. So you need to focus your development plan on that, right? What you build, when you build it, the order, the testing, and you need to focus your rollout on that. How you're going to start talking about your app, how you're going to sell users, convert users, and bring them on board. And most importantly, this needs to be focused around value. Okay, so if we have the problem and we have the solution, what value does that bring to a user, right? I mentioned the solution will enable them to achieve a certain outcome. That is value. Your development plan, right? Now, this doesn't sound very technical, but your development plan needs to focus on the value. It has to. Otherwise, you're going to build the wrong things at the wrong times. You're going to get the wrong feedback. You're going to struggle with your development and your launch. Focus it on the value. Okay, so when you're creating your early roadmap, make sure you keep these things in mind, because when you do that, you're going to be able to reach this point and move into the next stage. Now, the next stage is execution. You need to execute. Okay. Sounds really simple, but there are a couple things you want to look at in the execution stage. Now, number one, you want to make sure you are prioritizing the right things. Okay. This is when you really move into the actual kind of nitty-gritty work. This is when you're doing the development, you're getting your hands in the no-code tools and building your app. It's when you are doing a lot of beta user outreach. Okay. You need to make sure you are prioritizing in a couple different ways. Number one, you want to make sure you are prioritizing this step, the problem, the solution, the value. If you don't go into your development keeping these things as a priority, you're going to veer off track. You're going to go off scope. You're going to build the wrong things. You're going to get the wrong feedback. Okay, so you want to prioritize the problem, solution, and value the whole way. But you also need to start thinking about all of the other stuff. The reason why we're having this conversation, you need to think about balancing out this app development, the app rollout and launch alongside everything else you have going on in your life. Now, the entrepreneurs who we work with, they all have jobs, they have families, some of them have businesses, they have lives, right? All the normal stuff. Nobody has time, right? Nobody has time. That's just the way things are. So if you're wanting to launch an app, well, number one, the commitment and having the right plan, that's obviously going to help build momentum going into things, but you got to have the right execution. And that means making your app a priority for a contained amount of time. Okay. So when you are trying to find time to work on your technical development or to work on the business side with your app, and you just feel like you don't have it, it's not there, and you have to wait until the right time is available, well, that means you're just not making your app a priority. Okay, that's just the reality, and that's okay. Other things might be a priority, but in order to actually launch your app, you have to shift things around. That's just going to have to happen. So you have to decide what's less important to you in this moment than launching your app. Is it that extra 30 minutes of sleep you get every morning when you hit the snooze button 5 times? Is it that, hour of Netflix you watch every night? Is that less important than launching your app? Is it, being productive in your normal workday, being a little bit more efficient to give yourself extra time? Like, what are you going to change in order for you to be able to push your app forward? Now, that's not to say that for the rest of your life, you can never watch TV again, because that's just dumb, right? It just is. But if you have this early commitment, meaning you have a finish line, right? A finish line, your app is never going to be finished, but you have a launch date and you have the right plan to get you there, well, then you can tell yourself, okay, for the next 3 months, I'm going to forego Netflix, and that's going to give me an hour a day. You can do a heck of a lot with an hour a day, but you just have to make that commitment to prioritize your app instead of this other thing or these other things that are less important. It's really that simple. Okay, so you need to prioritize the problem, the solution, the value, but you need to make your app an actual priority as well. And you need consistency. Okay, so notice I said an extra hour a day can enable you to do a lot. I didn't say an extra couple hours each week. I didn't say, 2 hours on Saturday morning once a week. You really need consistency in 2 things, both the development side and the business side with your app. Now, to be clear, nothing has to be complicated. This can be really, really simple if you have consistency. If you're consistent with your development, that means you're going to come into your app every single day and you're going to knock off another item within your specific plan that has a finish line. Okay, you can consistently do that every single day, maybe every other day. That's okay, as long as there is some consistency to it. If you don't have consistency, what's going to happen, and I've seen this happen many times before, is you're going to come into your app and you're going to forget everything you did a week or 2 weeks before, and then you're going to spend the next hour, 2, 3 hours refreshing yourself on what you did. And by the time those 2 or 3 hours are up, well, you don't have any more time, and now you have to come back in next week. It's not very efficient. It's not very effective. You're not going to launch your app that way. So you need consistency for your own sake, just to remember what you've done in the app so you can keep building on it versus taking 1 step forward, 2 steps back throughout your entire development. Now, you also need consistency on the business side of things, because again, you don't need some big grand opening of launch in order to successfully get your app out there, but you do need really simple pieces of consistency. For example, with our own entrepreneurs, we have them consistently follow a plan for user outreach that is really, really simple. I mean, so incredibly simple if there is consistency. If there's not consistency, it becomes more complicated because then you have to change the plan to account for different obstacles that you run into. But if you just do the thing, take the simple steps, one after the next, you're going to build momentum. And that's what's going to push your app forward. So if you don't have your early commitment, right? If you don't have this, then you're not going to have any accountability, okay? There just won't be any. And if you don't have any hard accountability, meaning people don't know you are going to be putting a solution into users' hands very soon, ideally within the next few months. If people don't know that, then what's going to happen in your head is you're going to give yourself extra time. You're going to say, well, these other things came up and I haven't told anyone I'm launching yet, so let's just push it back another month. But when that happens for 3 months, 6 months, a year or more, it's not really helping anyone, is it? It's not helping you, and it's certainly not helping your users. So you need to make this commitment. Just publicly announce that launch. Even if it's to a small group of people, it can do wonders on allowing you to actually build momentum to even be able to balance the business side and the tech side with your app. Now, if you don't have the right plan, and remember, there's a very specific type of plan you want. You don't want some long, drawn out 30-page development business plan to launch your first version. Usually that just ends up turning into a lot of procrastination that's very unnecessary. Most things are going to change anyways. You need the right starting plan. Think of it like your starting blocks to help you build up momentum, to just initially take off with your app. If you don't have this plan, then you really just have no direction. You can drive for days and days and days, aiming for some destination somewhere, but if you don't have a route to get there, if you don't have a map, you're never going to get there. You can drive as fast as you want for as long as you want, right? You just have to have the right plan so you can have some direction, okay? That's going to help you build momentum into this execution stage, which is a very important stage. You need to be prioritizing, and you need to be doing so consistently. Without this, you have no momentum. And when there's no momentum, this is what happens mentally. And this is such a big mental game. You don't have any excitement, and therefore creating your app, launching your app becomes a chore, kind of like a job. That means that your app now falls lower on the priority totem pole, and your snooze button, Netflix, all the other things start to take priority over it. And that means, okay, let's say you want to take a couple weeks of a break and then come back to it. Well, that's never going to happen. It just doesn't. 9.5 times out of 10, if you do that, then you're gonna fail to come back in because the momentum is just not there. So you're just slowly letting things die out. That doesn't have to happen, and it doesn't have to feel like building an app and launching an app as a solo founder or a really small team is impossible. It just doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be that time consuming if you do these 3 things well, right? It can be pretty simple. A lot of people overcomplicate it unintentionally. This simplifies it. Simplify it. Follow a simple plan. If you don't have these things, none of the tech stuff matters. And that's what a lot of people end up focusing on too much. They only think about how to build this one technical feature, how to customize, how to make it a little fancier. Absolutely none of that matters if you don't have the 3 different components we talked about today. You will never find the balance. Either your technical side, the technical side of things is going to become way too heavy and you're not going to have time for the business side, or you're not going to focus on it, or you're going to get so sick of not being able to execute on the technical side that you're only going to focus on the business side. there is no balance, and there has to be a balance, and it can be so simple to create it. So I hope this brings value to you. I hope it's helpful. If you want to take the next steps in creating that plan, that correct plan of action for your development, your testing, and your launch, and you want to move into building and rolling out your app correctly and successfully, we have a deep dive workshop over at coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop that will walk you through these steps, by the hand, so that you can make sure you're moving forward in all the right ways and creating that balance for yourself. So you can check that out at coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop. Again, I hope this was helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.